Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello, Christina.
Great. I can hear, and I believe everyone can hear me. So let's start our roundtable for today, Human Trafficking as a Gross Violence of Human Rights. And I would like to take a minute to say some rules of our roundtable. So first of all, please keep your mics mute if you are not talking, or we need to have respect to our speakers. Then the second, we would like you to take 10 minutes for your speech, and also please schedule your speech accordingly. At the end, we will have more time to participate and to be more proactive, to share our experience and our thoughts. So I believe everything is clear, right?
Thank you.
So let's start, and I would like to give a word to CEO and founder NGO iDemocracy, Mr. Sergei Vlaschenko. Please, welcome.
Thank you, Christina. First of all, I would like just to thank all colleagues to join our roundtable, our discussion. It is really very important that all of you pay this attention to this vulnerable and important problem, human rights violation and human trafficking. I'm glad to welcome our national, Ukrainian and international experts here in order to share our experience and to work together, as human trafficking doesn't have any borders. We all know that it applies to all countries all over the world without any exceptions. Today, slavery is the most disgraceful phenomenon among all human rights violations of the 21st century. Today, there are more people enslaved than any other time in our history. It has brought more than $150 billion to human trafficking industry. 40 million people are enslaved worldwide. This is a shocking figure. Unfortunately, Ukraine is not an exception and shows horrible numbers when we are talking about forced labor, sex trafficking, organ trafficking, militarization of children or child soldiers in temporary occupied territories on the east of Ukraine. According to recent researchers of IOM, each fourth Ukrainian is ready to take a risky job offer abroad and sacrifice his health, his life, and family to become a cog and victim in the human trafficking machine. We've got portraits of potential human trafficking victim, and according to statistics, 54% among them are men, 62% are in the age between 20 and 50. So we can see that it is the most vulnerable part of society is the most active one, and instead of being effective for native national society in every country, very often those people become victims of criminals. 37% living in villages, 51% have a labor profession, 54% had previous experience of labor migration or having such relatives. According to the same IOM research, starting from 1991, over 300,000 Ukrainians become victims of human trafficking. Only for 2 last years, from 2019 till 2021, we've got 46,000 victims, 29,000 abroad and 17,000 inside Ukraine. Every day we face such crimes. Human life is sold for sex, labor, organs, for beggary, militarization, participation in criminal activities. Traffickers play and use the difficult situation of those who ended up without income. They took advantage of the fact that many people had lost their sources of income and children hadn't gone to school and spent a large amount of time on the internet. Growing demand for child sexual abuse pornography. During the crisis, children are in extremely vulnerable situation. Criminals actively exploited social networks and other online platforms to recruit them, including pornographic content, as the demand for it increased significantly during the pandemic. Our goal in iDemocracy is to unite our forces to fight against this phenomenon. Our job is to bring high public attention to human trafficking, as it is a gross violation of human rights. This is my short introductory speech, and I want everybody to encourage everybody to speak boldly on this important topic. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sergei Vlaschenko. We really appreciate that you highlight the importance of this topic. And I would like to pass the word to the Deputy Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine for European integration, to Ms. Olga Revuk. She will have a translator with her. So please pay attention and just be slow in your talking. Most welcome.
Thank you so much. Доброго дня всім шановні колеги, всім учасникам даного заходу. Перш за все, я хочу подякувати за організацію і активність в такій важливій темі, як протидія торгівлі людьми, і в цілому уряду Сполучених Штатів Америки за підтримку і за співпрацю в сфері протидії торгівлі людьми. На жаль, ця проблема залишається досить актуальною для більшості країн світу, і Україна не є виключенням.
Good afternoon. Yeah, we do. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm happy to see you all here. Thank you for your activity and thank you for your participation. And my special gratitude goes to the US government for their active support of this important topic in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the topic of human trafficking is extremely relevant to all the countries in the world, including Ukraine.
І за оціночними даними МОМ на сьогоднішній момент не за День Незалежності, за весь час незалежності України біля 300 тисяч є постраждалих від торгівлі людьми, тобто це біля 10 тисяч осіб на рік.
According to the data provided by MOM, for the entire time of Ukrainian independence, approximately 300,000 people became survivors of trafficking in human beings, which means approximately 10,000 people per year.
Більше того, сучасні реалії і виклики змушують нас шукати нові механізми і нові інструменти для того, щоб ми могли більш якісно дійсно впоратись з проблемою торгівлі людьми.
And present-day realia make us, and present-day challenges make us look for new mechanisms and new tools to overcome this problem.
І під час кризи ми розуміємо, що дуже багато людей без соціальних контактів, вони втратили роботу, внутрішньо переміщені особи знаходяться в стресовому ситуації, в економічній нестабільності, що є саме тим підґрунтям, коли ці особи можуть потрапити в тенет та торгівлю людьми.
We understand very well that during the crisis, there are some vulnerable categories with no social contacts. For instance, people who lost their jobs or who became IDPs, which are extremely vulnerable and are can potentially fall victim to this trade in human beings.
Крім того, діти, які в зв'язку з COVID-19 були змушені перейти на дистанційну форму навчання, вони також проводять дуже багато часу в інтернеті і як наслідок в соціальних мережах в тому числі, і як наслідок на них полюють дуже багато злочинців з метою втягнення їх в експлуатацію у різних формах.
In addition, children under the present-day circumstances of COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that they changed to distance learning, they spent a lot of time on the internet, in social networks, on social media, which means that they can easily encounter criminals who can influence them there and involve them in any type of exploitation, including trafficking in human beings.
Ми з нашої сторони, Міністерства соціальної політики, вже розробили і уряд прийняв концепцію державної цільової програми протидії торгівлі людьми. На сьогоднішній момент ми вже знаходимося на фінальній стадії і сьогодні відправили на погодження центральним органам виконавчої влади, обласним державним адміністраціям проект державної програми вже безпосередньо по протидії торгівлі людьми до 2025 року.
Today, the Ministry of Social Policy are working hard to develop the state target program to counter this human trafficking. So as of today, we sent out the draft copy, the draft program to be approved by the regional authorities. That is the program to combat human trafficking till the year 2025.
В проєкті майбутньої програми ми передбачили ті заходи, які максимально спроможні боротися з сучасними викликами. І ми плануємо також розширити нашу співпрацю не лише з органами влади, органами місцевого самоврядування, а також плануємо залучити до співпраці і відповідальний соціальний бізнес, також авіакомпанії та інші крупні перевізники з метою протидії торгівлі людьми.
Our future program envisages not only envisages different events to stop these crimes, and it's not only cooperation with local governments and authorities on regional and local levels, but also the responsible business representatives. For example, we've contacted the avia transportation companies and social business, and they will they will participate in these activities to overcome the problem.
Я маю щирі сподівання на те, що ця програма стане дійсно важливим і дієвим інструментом і таким координуючим документом для подальшої роботи всіх дотичних структур.
I do hope that this program will become the tool that will unite everyone's efforts in this important work.
І варто мені зазначити було, що не дивлячись і незважаючи на досить якісне законодавче врегулювання питань протидії торгівлі людьми, все одно залишається і є ще ряд великих проблем і питань, які потрібно вирішувати. Перше, це те, що в нас досить низька кількість осіб, які звертаються за отриманням статусу постраждалого від торгівлі людьми.
Despite, I would like to mention that despite our legal framework being quite appropriate in this sphere, we still have some challenges that we face while combating human trafficking. And first of them being a quite low number of people who apply to have their status of human trafficking survivor officially recognized.
Якщо дивитися на цифри, то за роки, коли можна було отримати цей статус, близько 1100 осіб отримали такий статус. Це в порівнянні з тими 300 тисячами осіб, які є потенційно постраждалими від торгівлі людьми за даними МОВ.
In terms of statistics, for the entire period when people were able to get this status, only 1,100 people applied to get this status officially. And if we compare that to the statistics of 300,000 people being the survivor of this human trafficking in general, we can see that this percentage is pretty low.
І така ситуація в першу чергу обґрунтовується тим, що наші громадяни, не дивлячись на проведення інформаційних кампаній, все ж залишаються досить низько обізнаними, погано обізнаними зі своїми правами і зі своїми можливостями звернення за державною допомогою.
That can be explained by the fact that regardless of all information campaigns that took place, our citizens are still have the very low level of awareness of their rights and the possibilities that are present in this sphere.
І для вирішення цієї проблеми, звичайно, ми повинні розуміти, що ми повинні проводити системну роботу, системні інформаційні кампанії із місцевими органами виконавчої влади, з органами місцевого самоврядування і з громадянами напряму також з приводу роз'яснень тих прав, які є в наших громадян.
This means that we need to conduct systematic work and informational both with local authorities and local governments, as well as with citizens directly, explaining them the opportunities, the options they have, and the information they can have in this process.
І варто сказати також, що ці процеси ми спостерігаємо і в зв'язку з тим, що відбуваються реформи на сьогоднішній момент, які прямо впливають на реалізацію державної політики в сфері протидії торгівлі людьми. Це реформа децентралізації, звичайно.
Also, the reforms in Ukraine are ongoing, which have direct effect on the on countering human trafficking and on implementation of state social policy in this sphere. What I mean is decentralization reform in Ukraine.
Тож наразі Міністерство соціальної політики працюємо ми над розробкою змін до законодавства в частині розмежування повноважень між центральним органом виконавчої влади, Міністерством соціальної політики, між Національною соціальною сервісною службою, між місцевими органами виконавчої влади і між органами місцевого самоврядування.
So we in the Ministry of Social Policy are working at making amendments to present legislation to separate the authorities of different state bodies, meaning on the local level and also on the national level, which are responsible for the following procedures.
Також мені хотілося б звернути увагу на таку другу проблему, як транскордонні злочини і втягнення в злочинну діяльність. Проблема так званих наркокур'єрів Російської Федерації, в Італії, в Греції, в Майлайзії, в Китайській Республіці, в Бразилії. І всі ці резонансні справи вимагають від нас не лише взаємодії національних органів влади, а й також розвитком транснаціональних механізмів співробітництва.
I would also like to draw your attention to so-called trans-border crimes and using people as drug couriers to transport drugs across borders in Russia and in other countries. This means that it also requires from us not only cooperation on the level of state authorities, but also developing these trans-border efforts.
Miss Olga,
також хотіла-
sorry for interruption. Just can you keep it a bit short so we can proceed with another speaker as well? Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much
you.
for understanding.
Okay,
Thank
I will
you.
try now.
Thank you.
Тоді дуже коротко хотілося б ще звернути увагу на основні напрямки, яким нам потрібно працювати згідно висновку Державного департаменту США. Це про посилення діяльності правоохоронних органів, а також про посилення співпраці органів на місцях і центральних органів і місцевого самоврядування задля виявлення цих осіб і задля надання допомоги безпосередньо соціальної, в тому числі постраждалим особам.
So I would also like to mention the main direction we need to approve according to the U.S. State Department. This is improving law enforcement efforts and also developing cooperation of the state authorities both on local levels and on the national levels.
Також я розумію, що нам потрібно посилювати співпрацю всіх причетних структур до протидії торгівлі людьми, і також, звичайно, громадськості в тому числі, і проводити якісніше і частіше координаційні ради на місцях, які є дієвим інструментом в реалізації цієї політики.
I also understand that we need to improve the involvement of all stakeholders into the process of countering trafficking in human beings, which also involves general public and state authorities, and also conduct coordination councils, which coordination councils meetings, which proved to be a very effective tool of doing this activity locally.
Щоб бути короткою, я буду тоді завершувати. Дуже дякую вам ще раз за запрошення і бажаю вам плідної дискусії. Дякую за увагу. Thank you.
I'm not going to take more of your attention, so I wish you every success. I wish you a fruitful discussion, and thank you for attention.
Great. Thank you so much, Miss Olga, for sharing your experience, for sharing some details about the future project, and we wish you good luck and all the best with it as well. Thank you for sharing some figures. It's very important for us as well to enrich our conversation and to have more clear understanding how important is human trafficking nowadays. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Thank you. So I would like to proceed with the speech of Mr. Mykola Kuleba, Director of Human Rights at iDemocracy. Mr. Kuleba, we are welcome you again.
Hello. Thank you so much, and thank participants for taking part in this roundtable. It is very important to discuss these issues. At the part of this event, I would like to focus on the child trafficking. After all, this category is the most vulnerable, and certainly without any help from adults, children cannot protect themselves. According to UNICEF, 28% of victims of human trafficking in the world are children. However, the provided data is very roughly reflecting the real picture. A massive problem for Ukraine is the child trafficking. In a closed system of orphanages and boarding schools, sexual exploitation carried out mainly by adults close to the child, and it's almost impossible to find out. And the sale of the children at the part of surrogacy. Those crimes are not reported to law enforcement, and they are hard to find out. And I would like to start with those children who have not yet been born. However, they became victims of shameful phenomena. The trafficking of unborn children in Ukraine has already become trend. People all over the world know that if you want to buy a child, the easiest way to do it is in Ukraine. For several years now, I have been declared at the highest level the inadmissibility of commercial surrogacy in Ukraine, as it turned into child trafficking due to the poor legislation. Leaving a child with a disability born by a surrogate mother is a child's own fate. At the same time, the fact that the owner of the clinic called the child a vegetable once again confirms the objectification of the child and the attitude to it as an item. The product did not come, it is not needed. It shows us how surrogacy looks like in Ukraine today. The second story is about large-scale child trafficking with a well-organized scheme for hundreds of millions of hryvnias, which was recently exposed by the security service of Ukraine in one of the regions. I can talk endlessly about such cases, and these are only the cases that become known to the public through the resonance. But no one knows or investigates the real picture. After all, there are not even statistics on how many such clinics and such children are born through surrogacy. Doctors also do not know if a surrogate mother is giving birth in the hospital. I hear a lot about the fact that parents have the rights to a child, but where in this process is the protection of the child's rights? The problem is not even in the reputation of Ukraine as a country that trades children, but in the suffering of the children who don't have any rights. I'm in favor of an immediate ban of commercial surrogacy in Ukraine, as it has all indicators of human trafficking. Another form of child trafficking is the sexual exploitation of children. According to the Council of Europe, 1 out of 5 children suffer from sexual abuse. 46 million unique photos and videos in the Europol database. Each image is posted on the internet thousands of times. Almost 70 million such cases were reported in 2019. Behind each image, there is a raped or spoiled child. Every moment, 750,000 criminals are building up a trust in contacts with a child on the internet to commit sexual violence. The 10 sites in darknet with the most brutal scene of child sexual abuse in the world have almost 300 million registered accounts. Children are exploited by criminals. Their own parents involve their children in filming porn to get paid for it. As an example, in Kiev, a woman who made pornography with her 5-year-old daughter. Unfortunately, Ukraine is among the top countries through which carries content with sexual exploitation and abuse. Today, our children are in danger due to the lack of prevention program and proper response to crime and punishment for criminals. And shortly about the investigation. The system designed to save and protect children does not work today. I have been dealing with these issues for 5 years. In 2020, we conducted a study about this. Those results are shocking. It looks like today's investigation only injuring the child. Police say they often do not report crimes of sexual abuse in order to avoid investigations and legislation. During the investigation, the child must interviewing at least 3 times. There were cases when the child was interviewed more than 100 times. Every time a child is focused to repeat a history of violence against him, there is a repeated trauma. Sexual abuse of a child is a terrible trauma that leaves its mark for a lifetime. It's important for us to build a system that works in the best interest of the child, not the other way around. When the child is held hostage by the system and forced to reuse violence to punish the offender. Sexual exploitation of children today has no border or statuses. Parents may think they have a prosperous family, their child is safe. However, criminals hunt for a child on the internet every second. We conducted the first study in Ukraine on sexual violence against children and sexual exploitation of children on the internet in Ukraine. According to it, almost 25% of children have experienced situations of sexual violence and online exploitation. About orphanages and boarding school, I want to say a little about all of this system, horrible Soviet system. Today, there are almost 100,000 children in Ukraine in boarding school and orphanages. More than 90% of them have parents. The vast majority of these children are social orphans. It means legally they have parents, but in fact, no one is interested in them. The stories of orphanages graduates are shocking. Plenty of cases of violence involvement in prostitution, labor exploitation. These are the stories that are shared after the orphanage. After all, a closed boarding school system does not give a child way to turn for help. In general, I would like to summarize. 40% of vulnerable children in Ukraine are at risk of being trafficked. It's mean our children are in danger due to the lack of prevention program and proper response to crime and punishment of criminals. There is no information available that the employer is not involved in any kind of exploitation. It is simply impossible to check the records. Our team has a lot of experience and we are ready to share it and are open for cooperation. The challenge is huge. Only by joint efforts we would be able to overcome it. Welcome to our big Ukrainian team. Let's do children's lives better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuleba, and we are very grateful for sharing such horrible cases with us, such figures. We are truly impressed, and I believe that we will find together the ways how we can fight and how we can combat human trafficking. All together we can do better, I believe so. And I would like to pass a word to the country head A21, Ukraine, Yulia Sachenko. Yulia, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can
Yes,
you hear me
great.
well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much for the invitation and the attention to this issue of combating human trafficking in the world and in Ukraine. And as it continues to escalate in our society, and I'm grateful to the State Department of USA for the constant focus to this issue, monitoring the situation in the world, and for the TIP report particular, as it has a direct impact on the process in our country. So my name is Julia Sachenko, and I'm a country manager for A21 in Ukraine, which is an office of the international organization, the A21 campaign, that has been working to combat human trafficking for over 13 years already. A21 is an international non-governmental organization that works exclusively to combat trafficking in human beings with a mission statement: abolish slavery everywhere and forever. A21 works across 19 locations in 14 countries with a wide range of programs, including shelters, national hotlines, child advocacy centers, mass awareness campaigns, etc., and professional trainings. And I want to introduce you to the circle of human trafficking, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, I will share my screen to show you a little picture so that we would be able to discuss it. Can you see the picture?
Yes, absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, so all start with vulnerability. First of all, this is common for all the victims. A person could be born in the difficult circumstances or find themselves in such conditions that push them to make a risky decision. For example, unemployment, the search of a better life, for security, for love, for opportunities to provide for the families. All these are wonderful aspirations that traffickers can use to lure people. The second stage is exploitation. This is the process of taking an advantage of the person or a group of people for profit. It includes all forms of exploitation. And trafficking in human beings is ruthless, is deeply rooted in our society and our economy. This brings us to the stage number 3, re-victimization. The few survivors who do manage to escape often do not know where to turn for help. Without timely and qualified assistance, survivors can return to the same circumstances, a vulnerable state, but now they are aggravated by trauma, shame, and suffering, which are the result of the previous exploitation. In this way, the person can be easily re-trafficked again. The level of vulnerability has increased, and the risk of re-trafficking has increased as well. So these are 3 elements. These 3 elements form this cycle of human trafficking, a repeating model of vulnerability, exploitation, and re-victimization. For many years, we have been trying to understand this complex crime and use various tools to break this cycle. From this journey, we have developed an operational strategy designed to break the cycle of human trafficking on each stage. Now I show my second picture, which form our theory of change in human trafficking. So basically, 3R approach: reach, rescue, and restore. This is our theory of change. Reach is designed to prevent trafficking situation even before they occur. We are working with vulnerable people by raising awareness about the problem. Rescue direction exists to rescue people from slavery, and we cooperate with law enforcement agencies and providing legal support in there. And restore by providing accommodation, medical care, psychological rehabilitation, training, and education. We can reduce vulnerabilities and help the survivors to start an independent life. This strategy basically stops survivors of re-entering the trafficking situation once again. And the Victim Assistance Program provides comprehensive support and individual approach. So having practical experience, I will stop sharing my screen and go on with my message. So having a practical experience of working with survivors and vast experience of prevention work at the national level together with our partners in Ukraine, I would like to draw attention to several trends in human trafficking in Ukraine as well as in the world. So first of all, continuing the opinion of Mykola Kuleba, who has just said about the trafficking of children, I would like to draw attention to the fact that the problem of exploitation of children in boarding schools does not remain on the same place. In addition to all said above, these children remain the most vulnerable category of population. After graduating from the boarding school, they dream of a decent life, but have no money for it. So quite popular among these children is the idea of selling the organ to get the startup capital for further development. Thus, these children are the most accessible target for traffickers and can easily be involved in organ trafficking because they have no social ties, they are prone to risky behaviors and often already have problems with the law and do not know how to cooperate with law enforcement. The most common trends in human trafficking in Eastern Europe, as Ms. Olga Revuk has already mentioned, is involvement into criminal activity. I will not stay here for a long time and will move forward to the surrogacy. As Mykola Kuleba already mentioned, in Ukraine, the legislation in Ukraine does not contain either a definition of surrogacy or a list of rights and responsibilities of participants in the surrogacy program. It also does not provide for liability for violations in the field of surrogacy. In one of the cases that we provided assistance to the surrogate mother who was a witness in the criminal case of human trafficking against the clinic, she gave birth about 6 months ago, but due to the litigation, counterclaims from parents, the child is still not registered. The child does not have a birth certificate and therefore cannot receive medical care. The mother cannot apply for the state financial assistance to care for the child, although she is a caregiver at this point of time. The registered bodies and the Ministry of Justice do not know how to deal with such issues because there were no precedents before. And of course, there are enough problematic issues and trends in human trafficking, but due to the lack of time, the last thing I would like to draw attention to today is that there is still an armed conflict happening on the east of Ukraine that creates ideal conditions for crime and impunity exploitation of people in various fields. From sexual exploitation to labor slavery, in which people are detained and forced to do the hardest work in sometimes inhumane conditions. In practice of 821, there were cases when survivors were forced to unload wagons, test demined fields, and collect the remains of human corpses. Now in 2021, we are dealing with cases that occurred in the years of 2014, 2016. Since the conflict is taking place in the territory that is not controlled by the government of Ukraine, we will be able to assess the real picture and the number of survivors in that region only after the end of conflict. And basically, this is almost the end of my message today. But as the whole world condemns this injustice, but the fact that only few people and few organizations are really doing something allow this crime to exist. This is the reason why trafficking will continue to take place. This is why it is extremely important for us to consolidate our efforts at the national and international levels. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Julia. It was really a pleasure to have you today to hear your speech. It's really very useful, and I believe only working together, only by combining our efforts, we can do our better. I see that we are getting in chat some questions for now. So I would like to encourage everyone to be patient, and probably you will hear the response just during the speech of one of our speakers. So that's why we scheduled all the questions to the end. You will have a time to participate, you will have a time to share your experience, and we will be happy to reply all your questions and your concerns. So I would like now to invite Assistant Project Officer of OSCE Office for Democratic Constitution and Human Rights, Mr. Maximilian Scheidt. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. We are happy to hear you here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy to be here as well. I will share my screen because I prepared a tiny presentation. 1 second. You should be able to see it now, from what I understand.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, perfectly. So thank you very much for the invitation. We're very glad to speak, or I'm very glad to speak here on behalf of the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. My name is Maximilian Scheidt, and I will present today just briefly on ODIHR's flagship guidance tool, the updated NRM handbook, so on national referral mechanisms, as well as on the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council. So what has been mentioned already as basically one of the most important frameworks for ensuring the identification and protection of victims of trafficking and combating and preventing trafficking is basically the national referral mechanism. So in short, an NRM. An NRM is a cooperative national framework through which governments fulfill their obligation to protect and promote the human rights of victims of trafficking and survivors of trafficking, of course. It enables the coordination of their efforts in a strategic partnership with civil society organizations, the private sector, as well as survivor leaders and other actors working in the field. NRM should be established in all countries, be it their origin, be it the transit country or destination, to ensure basically a comprehensive and inclusive system of support that is targeted at and accessible to all victims and survivors of trafficking. It should also cover basically all presumed and identified victims, regardless of their background, nationality, activities they may have been involved in, or their willingness to cooperate with law enforcement authorities. And this covers trafficking as has happened domestically, transnationally, and of course also abroad. So the question is here, of course, why an update to the NRM handbook, which basically sets out the national referral mechanisms? Well, the last version was published in 2004, has been a while, and since then it has been established in many countries, among others also in Ukraine. And now the second edition actually seeks to incorporate the many enhancements on a legislative, on a policy level, as well as also like on capacity building and other initiatives, especially also for the criminal justice sector. So what in practice this means is basically that the updated NRM handbook provides an essential know-how of the working methods and procedures and services that are required in order to fulfill the objective of an NRM. It explains specifically the individual needs and risks of adults and children who are victims of trafficking, and centering thereby all communications and actions on the protection of victims and the overall prevention of human trafficking. The update will be guided by 12 NRM principles that guide the creation and implementation of the NRM. 4 NRM pillars, which are also then basically the main sections. It's identification plus protection, individual support and access to services, social inclusion, and the criminal justice and redress. We have also developed recommended standards for providing a measurable framework for the implementation of the 4 pillars. Because we aim actually to have a very practical handbook, we have also set out a guide for health needs of survivors of trafficking and assessment tools, which can be adapted to the national environment, which cover basically the needs and risk assessments for adults and children. Informed was this handbook by a comprehensive empirical research and evidence collated from across the OSCE region. ODIHR has conducted, for instance, 7 NRM assessments in selected participating states, and the whole publication was also informed by a multidisciplinary panel and expert group, which was convened by ODIHR. So one aspect that is very central to us and which has never really been included before in such a large-scale publication was basically the role and the expertise of international survivor leaders. And this was central to our development. We believe, or ODIHR believes, that survivor leaders should inform and influence all aspects of NRM structures. This includes the service delivery, the procedures, as well as the anti-trafficking legislation, policy making, awareness raising, capacity building, you name it, basically. They have the capacity basically and the knowledge and skills to enhance and inform procedures for identification, as well as guide the protection and prevention of re-trafficking. This handbook has been informed by survivor surveys, interviews, survivor leaders that are part of the NRM advisory group, and the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council, which I will speak about later. One of the key points that I would like to flag, and which were also raised already previously here in this panel, is that NRMs should be as inclusive as possible in terms of stakeholder participation, cooperation, and strategic partnership. For instance, trained multi-agency first responders and other professionals who operate within national referral mechanisms on a local and subnational level can be highly effective in identifying victims and delivering services related to the NRM. The NRM handbook also promotes operational partnership protocols, which should be clearly used to define the purpose and coordination of such a joint working relationship of many stakeholders, while ensuring the maintenance of each party's independence within the mandate and remit of their role. This has been mentioned throughout this event already today and is one of the priorities, of course, as well for ODIHR, but in general also to combat trafficking, is basically to understand and tackle the issue of child trafficking. The updated NRM handbook here offers for the first time a child-centered guidance throughout. We explain basically in the book the child-sensitive or child-specific vulnerabilities to trafficking. The book also focuses on child-friendly identification protection procedures. For instance, we're recommending the Barnahus model for children as a useful basis for the treatment of child witnesses and child victims within criminal justice proceedings. And ODIHR is also in the process of assisting Ukraine in the establishment of the Child Justice Center, which has exactly this kind of purpose. What has been largely absent as well, despite the fact that trafficking is quite a gendered crime, is a gender-sensitive approach. So basically the handbook streamlines this throughout, and it basically maintains and promotes a gender-sensitive approach, which should be tailored for all victims throughout the handbook. For instance, in practical terms, that means that victims and survivors should be able to choose the gender of professionals who work with them in any role, which consists basically of recording and discussing personal details. Another point that has been largely absent from the discussion and also from the implementation of NRMs, but also any other trafficking responses, has been the trauma-informed approach. And ODIHR believes that all communications and actions need to demonstrate respect for the individual dignity, integrity, and agency of each victim and survivor of trafficking. Therefore, methods of working should not only be victim-centered, of course, and gender-sensitive, it should also be trauma-informed. And the trauma-informed approach has been streamlined throughout, as I said. I was also asked by the organizers to briefly explain or present on the COVID report that we had conducted last year, 2020, to basically address the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and analyze emerging trafficking trends and dynamics, and to develop an anti-trafficking response based on empirical data. We teamed up with UN Women to conduct a global survey of survivors of trafficking with responses of 40 countries and frontline stakeholders from 102 countries. And many responses actually came also from Ukraine. Based on these responses, as well as an expert panel, ODIHR and UN Women then jointly developed policy recommendations, which were drafted in this report now shown, and I will also share the link later. The report is available in English, French, and Russian. And I would just like to flag a couple of key findings from here before I close the session, before I close my presentation, is basically the COVID pandemic has exacerbated the vulnerability of at-risk groups to trafficking human beings. Survivors noted here specifically that the economic downturn will increase the vulnerability to recruitment by traffickers and the risk of re-victimization of survivors. As has been mentioned by previous speakers as well, from the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, every third survivor respondent was targeted with at least one or several offers which were directly or potentially related to possible exploitation. The most common offers were referring to a job within the same country. Offers were also covered from coming from sex industry and employment without the provision of information about the type and nature of the employment, which is highly suspicious, of course. In most cases, these offers were made online, which suggests that online forms may basically continued or increased during the pandemic. The survey of frontline stakeholders at the same time clearly showed that government's capacity to combat trafficking in beings has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This impact is particularly evident in the following areas: identification procedures, social services, and sheltered accommodation. Furthermore, the proper functioning of NRMs or equivalent systems has been affected as well. Approximately half of the countries that had only partially operational NRMs in place. However, one general finding is that countries with NRMs have been better able to address actually vulnerabilities to trafficking of at-risk groups and to re-trafficking of survivors of trafficking, compared with countries without any of those equivalent systems or NRMs. Another issue, of course, is funding. Organizations, especially civil society organizations, need additional funding to manage the pandemic's mid and long-term consequences. Three-quarters basically stated that their organization will currently require, so last year in 2022, additional funding to address the needs resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the vast majority actually reported that they will need additional funding. A lack of necessary funding could therefore result in a loss of a large number of anti-trafficking NGOs globally, experienced staff, and the long-term ability to ensure effective functioning of national referral mechanisms and equivalent systems. And now finally, I would like to draw your attention to the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council, short ISTAC, which has been launched this year by ODIHR in January, and is basically the first supranational advisory body to an international organization solely composed of 21 survivor leaders, incredible people with a diverse background and multidisciplinary expertise from 14 OSCE participating states. ISTAC's purpose is to provide basically advice, guidance, and recommendations to ODIHR, and then through ODIHR to the participating states on all matters pertaining to combating trafficking in human beings, as well as fostering survivor leadership on a national and a global level. Since its inception, ISTAC has been working closely with the UN, with civil society organizations, and with some of the participating states as well. And one of just recently, actually, one of the ISTAC members has co-trained the Ukrainian cybercrime police unit on child protection in a digital environment. And if there's interest in collaborating with a member of the ISTAC or with the ISTAC in total, please drop me an email, and we are happy to see how to accommodate your request. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like to hand back the floor to Christina. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maximilian. It was a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you for sharing the presentation and some aspects about the national mechanism on combating human trafficking. It's really very important and very interesting. Thank you so much again. And I would like to pass a word to your colleague, National Officer on Combating Trafficking in Human Beings, OSCE, and Ms. Nadia Kondina. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me well?
Great. I believe you will speak English, right?
Yes, I will speak English.
Great.
I may also French, German, which you prefer, or should we stay in English? Okay. I would also like to share my screen, if I may.
Yes, most welcome.
One moment. Share. Here you are. I hope you see it, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
You can see presentation, yes?
Yes, you can also just pass another slide as we can see the whole one.
Okay, one moment. So now you can see, yes?
Great, yes.
Okay. And I would like, you see presentation, yes, because I have also my notes.
Yes,
Yes?
you can open it full screen.
Okay, so I would like to present our efforts of OSCE project coordinator in Ukraine in area of combating trafficking in human beings. And my name is Nadia Kandybina, thank you for mentioning, and I'm responsible for combating trafficking and working within a human security program. And here you can see our directions in which we are working in our comprehensive efforts in not only in trafficking, but also in domestic violence, cybercrime, promoting gender equality and support to police reform. And as an overview for our efforts in combating trafficking in human beings, I would like to mention our partners with whom we are working. It's the Ministry of Interior and National Police of Ukraine and Ministry of Social Policy. And we are also working closely with universities of Ministry of Interior. And talking about our efforts with the Ministry of Interior, we are nowadays integrating current international and best practices in teaching CTHB courses. And previous year, Migration Police Department presented their new name, and they asked us for assisting them in developing strategy for the transformation of Migration Police Department, and they are focusing now not only on combating trafficking in human beings, but also illegal migration. And this year we dealt with it, and hopefully next year in January we will present this strategy, which comprises all the efforts and direction for the future 5 years. So it will be strategy 2022 till 2027, and also support them in technical assistance and providing them specific, addressing their specific needs in technical equipment. That's about Migration Department. We are also working closely with Cyber Police Department, and this year we also supported them on and have new project. That's what Mr. Kuleba has mentioned, and Ms. Julia about combating child pornography online. We will have new project together with Cyber Police Department, so hopefully we can support and provide our activities together on certain issues. And also as the separate direction, we're also working as combating trafficking in human being with IT facilitated. And Migration Police also asked us within this strategy for the next 5 years to teach them OSINT, its open source intelligence, and other online tools to address online trafficking, as well as TIP report presented last year, and UNODC also presented that online trafficking in Ukraine drastically grows, and that's why Migration Police will need new resources to combat it and to address this new, not so new, but still addressing online trafficking in human beings and certain forms of it, as we mentioned already, online pornography, online recruitment, as well as online labor exploitation. As for Ministry of Social Policy, thank you, Maximilian, for mentioning NRM. So I will not need to spill what does it mean. It's National Referral Mechanism, and we conducted it in Ukraine, and we have project for 10 years together with IOM, International Organization for Migration. And in recent years, we made mostly addressing decentralization reform, as it is such things that need to be addressed this year as it grows. And we conducted also trainings together with our NGOs. I think Marina Pasichnik will tell about NGOs capacity building efforts in this area. And we presented a special manual for the heads of territorial communities for them to address the combating trafficking in human beings and to conduct interviews with vulnerable population, and also to strengthen identification of victims of trafficking, as well as conduct consultations between NGOs, IPs, and NRM stakeholders responsible for VAT identification. Separately, I would like also to mention about our information campaign that have started last year. And every year, OSCE project coordinator, together with the Ministry of Social Policy and our partners, A21 and IOM, conducts a raising awareness campaign. And as due to COVID-19, we didn't have possibility to conduct it offline, and we shifted to online and launched it in Facebook and Instagram with a specific focus on youth and unemployed persons. And now we reached almost 10,000 subscribers and provided more than 1,000 consultations. And I would also like to add about our efforts with universities of Ministry of Interior, that we are developing specific anti-trafficking practical component with them. And as you may know, that one of the university, namely Lviv University of Ministry of Interior, is responsible one for combating trafficking in human beings, and they also signed a strategy with Department of Migration Police to strengthen their efforts for educating new police and specific for Migration Police Department. And they also asked us, and we supported them in their practical component and conducted simulation exercise together with our office in Vienna. It's special representative and coordinator in trafficking, in combating trafficking in human beings, and also institutionalized, developed training within the curriculum of this university. And I would also like to mention that I have just returned from the Donetsk University of Ministry of Interior, which is situated in Mariupol and as well in Kryvyi Rih. And this university needs assistance, so I would like to share this information with you, as this university was displaced and more attention is paid to Mariupol, but Kryvyi Rih still needs assistance as technical. They also have green rooms for children, and this is the only green room in the whole region, I mean Kryvyi Rih, where police can conduct with children investigations. And they also need support in teaching their personnel, as all of their personnel mostly practical workers, and they lack educational expertise in it. That's what I'd like to mention. And just few pictures, if I have still few minutes, yes. To share about the progress of NRM and our efforts together with IOM, you can see on it, and which exactly regions are working with OSCE project coordinator in Ukraine, and what exactly we are done, and put it in some statistics. As well as to the statistics of National Police of Ukraine and Ministry of Social Police. This is the main types of exploitation in Ukraine. And to put the problem in pictures and not only in words, I would like also to present some pictures which were given from National Police from recent cases of labor exploitation, and to see how it comes there. And one of the recent, it's pictures from Kharkiv region, which was last year. And yeah, and a few pictures about our support of raising awareness campaign and working with youth, working with migration department, not only police, but also service of migration, and how we do prevent and protection through economic empowerment, as well with our social entrepreneurship. Prosecution, I have already mentioned that we worked not only with MOU and NPU, but also with prosecutor's office and judges, and our partners are Kharkiv University of Internal Affairs, if we're talking about cyber issues mostly. That's view of achievement in the recent years, which I already also mentioned, I suppose, and our further actions which we need assistance and not to duplicate, to share with you and to know where we can do it together to make a difference together. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you so much for sharing the presentation, and it was really very useful for us to know which information campaigns you are dealing with, and it is very important as a part of prevention mechanism. So we are very grateful for your efforts and for participation with us today in our roundtable. And I would like to pass the word to Ms. Marina Pasechnik. She is a representative from All Ukrainian NGO Coalition for Combating Trafficking in Human Beings. Please, we are welcoming you here.
Sorry. Доброго дня всім. Мене звати Марина Пасічник, і я є головою Всеукраїнської коаліції громадських організацій з протидії торгівлі людьми.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pasechnik, and I am the head of All Ukrainian NGO Coalition for Combating Trafficking in Human Beings.
Так, я зараз відкрию дослідження, і зараз, поки я буду чашечка є. Представляти дослідження, я би хотіла сказати кілька слів про Всеукраїнську коаліцію громадських організацій з протидії торгівлі людьми, яка була створена ще у 2011 році, і вона налічує у своєму складі 31 організацію з усіх регіонів України.
While I'm sharing my screen to show you the study I'm going to talk about further, I would like to say several words about the All Ukrainian NGO Coalition, which was founded back in 2011 and which includes 31 organizations from all over the world.
І основними завданнями коаліції це є участь у формуванні і реалізації державної політики в сфері протидії торгівлі людьми на національному, регіональних рівнях і розробка і просування законодавчих ініціатив.
The main mission of our coalition is participation, development and implementation of amendments to legislative framework on national level, regional level and also making changes to the law.
Це є також здійснення громадського моніторингу і контролю за виконанням політики протидії торгівлі людьми, реалізації політики протидії торгівлі людьми в державі.
And also we are conducting monitoring and control of the implementation of countering human trafficking efforts conducted by the state.
І зараз реалізується вже 7-й коаліційний проект щодо здійснення громадського контролю за виконанням політики протидії торгівлі людьми в 21-му і 22-му областях, і цей проект реалізується в 21 області України.
At present, we are in the process of the 7th coalition dealing with community monitoring of the state implementation of counter human trafficking activities, and that is for the years 21-22, and it takes place in 21 oblasts of Ukraine.
Це також організації, члени коаліції проводять превентивну роботу із попередження торгівлі людьми, особливо серед груп ризику.
Members of our coalition are conducting preventive measures to prevent possible human trafficking, especially within vulnerable groups.
Зараз в 17 областях України реалізується проект щодо підвищення обізнаності молоді щодо безпечної міграції і працевлаштування.
In 17 oblasts of Ukraine, we have an ongoing project about raising awareness among young people for safe traveling and safe employment.
І в рамках цього проекту вже 50 тисяч молодих осіб пройшли квест безпечного працевлаштування і довідалися правила безпечної подорожі і працевлаштування.
In the framework of this project, 50,000 of young people took part in the quest, in the safe employment quest, and learned the rules of safe employment and safe traveling.
Громадські організації, представники громадських організацій, вони підвищують рівень кваліфікації представників суб'єктів національного механізму, які здійснюють заходи в сфері протидії торгівлі людьми.
Representatives of NGOs are improving the qualification of the subjects who represent the authorities responsible for countering the trafficking in human beings on the national level.
На замовлення Національної соціальної сервісної служби в Україні були навчені всі відповідальні особи за встановлення статусу всієї України.
On the request of National Social Service, we trained all the representatives or all the people who are responsible for taking the appropriate action.
Зараз, на сьогоднішній день, вже по всій Україні завершилося навчання представників територіальних громад щодо проблематики торгівлі людьми, виявлення, ідентифікації осіб і надання їм допомоги тим особам, які постраждали від торгівлі людьми.
We conducted the training all over Ukraine, and it's ended now. So it was the training for representatives of territorial communities dedicated to strengthening identification of victims and providing thorough assistance to them.
Пані Ольга Рвук називала цифри, що за даними дослідження Міжнародної організації з міграції, близько 300 тисяч українців за роки незалежності постраждали від торгівлі людьми.
Olga Revuk referred to the statistics, and she said that for the entire period of Ukrainian independence, around 100,000 people were the survivors of human trafficking.
Кількість осіб, які звернулися за допомогою до Міжнародної організації міграції через громадські організації, станом на 30 вересня становила 19 035 осіб.
And the number of people who sought help with IOM as of the 30th of September amounted to 12,000 people. Перепрошую, можна ще раз?
19 035 осіб. Станом на 30
дякую. 19,035 people.
І ця підтримка становила, це психологічна допомога особам, це медична допомога, це супровід осіб у досудовому і судовому слідстві, це надання притулку, надання цим людям змоги підвищити свою кваліфікацію, отримати якусь професію і сприяння у працевлаштуванні цих людей.
When we say assistance, we mean that those people received psychological assistance, medical assistance, then legal assistance, which means we accompanied them in the process of their cases being taken, and also the criminal proceedings taking place in regards of them. Also, some asylum was provided and other assistance that those survivors might require.
І це також програми, грантові програми для тих постраждалих осіб, які прагнуть започаткувати власний бізнес.
Also, we provided some training and helped those survivors get new professions, and also these were grant programs which help the survivors who want to start their own business.
Як формулювати нашу політику далі у роботі з особами, які постраждали від торгівлі людьми? Куди потрібно націлити наші зусилля для того, щоб підвищити обізнаність громадян України? Це показано, видно з національного дослідження з питань міграції, торгівлі людьми, інших форм експлуатації мігрантів.
Here on the screen, see the slide from the national study on migration, human trafficking, and other forms of exploitation, which defines our policies and our efforts, and tells us in what direction we need to go to raise awareness of the public and all stakeholders.
Це національне опитування було здійснено на замовлення представництва Міжнародної організації з міграції у вересні-жовтні 2021 році, і в ньому взяли участь більше 5000 осіб віком понад 14 років з усіх регіонів України і міста Києва.
This study has been conducted by the to the request of the International Migration Organization in September-October 2020. And the participants were over 1,000 people aged 14 and over from all regions of Ukraine.
Що показало це дослідження? Які такі самі основні висновки можна зробити? Що кожен четвертий українець готовий прийняти ризиковану пропозицію щодо роботи за кордоном або в іншому населеному пункті України. Тобто працювати без офіційного оформлення документів, в закритому приміщенні, віддати свій паспорт до рук роботодавців і так далі.
What we found out as a result of this study is that every fourth Ukrainian citizen is ready or willing to accept the potentially risky employment proposal, which means not have any official employment documents drawn to work in the close quarters, and also to give up his passport to somebody else's, to some other people.
І за оцінкою, які ж масштаби зовнішньої трудової міграції? У 2021 році кількість осіб-мігрантів становить 1 167 000 осіб.
According to the recent estimate, the statistics from the year 2021 is that number of labor migrants is 1,167,000 people.
Це на 11% більше, ніж у 2019 році.
And it's by 11% more compared to 2019.
І із зростанням масштабів зовнішньої трудової міграції зростає і частка тих, хто працює за кордоном неофіційно, з 30% у 2019 році до 42% у 2021 році.
As those numbers of external labor migrations grow, together with them grows the share of those who are employed illegally, which means it's 30% back in 2019, and now it's 42% in 2021.
Найбільше міграції з Рівненської, Львівської, Закарпатської, Івано-Франківських областей Західного регіону України і Херсонської області.
The largest number of migrants come from the Western Ukraine, Rivne Oblast, Lviv Oblast, Zakarpattia Oblast, and also from Kherson.
І представники Закарпатської області майже 30% відмітили, що вони вже готові знайти роботу за кордоном або знайшли роботу за кордоном, щоб виїхати.
And from Zakarpattia Oblast, almost 30% of them admitted that they, for the purposes of migration, they are ready to get work abroad, or they have already get this work abroad.
Що стосується масштабів внутрішньої трудової міграції, то вперше з усіх досліджень, а вони регулярно проводяться з 2006 року, було дослідження щодо масштабів внутрішньої трудової міграції в Україні.
This study is the first time that it deals with internal labor migration, because these studies have been done quite regularly since 2006, but it's the first time that we are dealing with the issue of internal labor migration.
І масштаби внутрішньої міграції, вони менші, майже вдвічі нижчі, ніж масштаби зовнішньої трудової міграції.
The scale of internal labor migration is almost 2 times smaller compared to the external labor migration.
Які ж фактори впливають на рішення людей щодо залишити Україну і поїхати на заробітки за кордон?
What are the factors that make people take this decision of leaving their country, leaving Ukraine and going to work abroad?
66% населення заявили, що вони хочуть заробити кошти для того, щоб їх в подальшому витратити в Україні, для того, щоб втілити якісь власні плани.
66% of respondents said that they want to earn some money, some funds, and later spend them in Ukraine for some needs of their own.
37% не можуть знайти роботу в Україні, як вони вважають, що в них була достатній рівень оплати.
37% cannot find the work in Ukraine which will provide them with sufficient level of income.
22% хочуть отримати новий досвід або нові враження.
22% are willing to get new experience or new impressions.
І 9% опитаних хочуть емігрувати з України назавжди.
And 9% of the respondents are willing to leave Ukraine and migrate to a different country forever.
Так, а які ж бажані сфери роботи для потенційних мігрантів? Взагалі, на першому місці це те, що робота вимагає кваліфікацію за спеціальністю. І серед жителів міста Київ відповідь вибирали цю двічі частіше, ніж загалом по виборці.
What are the preferable spheres for employment for such respondents? First of all, the number one preference is working according to their degree or their education, and people from Kyiv chose this answer twice as much compared to respondents from other oblasts and cities.
Щодо роботи на будівництві, тому коли ми бачимо синім кольором, це за гендерним розподілом, синій – це чоловіки колір, а жовтим, оранжевим відмічені жінки. То чоловіки більше бажають працювати якби на будівельних або якихось реставраційних роботах, а жінки хочуть працювати більше, виконуючи хатні роботи.
When we speak about the sphere of construction, so this scale that you see on the slide, that's a gender reflection of this statistics. So blue is males and orange or yellow is females. So there are more males willing to work in construction or building spheres compared to females, while females are willing to perform some domestic and household work.
І жінки хочуть більше працювати в ресторанному бізнесі, в готельному бізнесі, в сфері торгівлі і в медичних закладах.
Women are willing to work in HoReCa sphere, hotels, restaurants, catering, different sales, and also in restaurants and medical institutions. Sorry.
Так, щодо країн, де хотіли би найбільше працювати наші українці. Тобто це Німеччина, це Польща, далі йде Чехія, Італія, Канада, Британія, США, Іспанія, Ізраїль і Російська Федерація.
When we speak about preferable countries which are preferable for employment, that is Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, then goes Canada, the US, and the Great Britain, and also we see the Russian Federation in this list.
Marina, I'm so sorry. would you be just so short? Because we need to give a word to the participants for questions, for concerns. I would be very appreciate. Thank you so much.
Добре, дякую. Я скорочую свою презентацію. Ця презентація доступна і англійською мовою, але за браком часу я не встигла її загрузити. Ось, і я би ще хотіла зупинити, якби ми можемо надіслати вам цю презентацію для розповсюдження, і хотіла би ще зупинити, сказати кілька слів про національну гарячу лінію з протидії торгівлі людьми і консультування мігрантів, яка працює за підтримки USAID і представництва МОМу в Україні.
Thank you. I will try and be brief. This presentation is available in English. It's just because of the lack of time, I couldn't download it, but I'm willing to share it, and you can have it in English or any other language. I would also like to say several words about the national hotlines for survivors of human trafficking, which has been operating in Ukraine with the support of USAID and MOI.
За час роботи національної гарячої лінії, вже не йде, за звернень було, яка національна гаряча лінія працює з 2006 року, звернулися на цю лінію близько 315 тисяч громадян України, іноземців і осіб без громадянства.
This hotline has been active since 2006, and since that year, around 315,000 people, Ukrainian citizens, foreign citizens, and people without citizenship applied to this hotline.
І звертаються на гарячу лінію особи, які ймовірно постраждали від торгівлі людьми, і ми їх перенаправляємо в профільні громадські організації, до державних структур і до правоохоронних органів з усієї України, щоб вони могли відновити свої права і отримати належну і гарантовану їм державою України допомогу.
People who call this hotline are potential survivors of human trafficking, and we are referring them further on to corresponding NGO, to law enforcement system, and to local authorities for them to be able to get proper assistance and to renew their rights.
Дякую.
Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Marina, for participation and for highlighting for us some results about labor migration. It is as a part of human trafficking, absolutely correct. And we were really great pleasure to have you here. And I would like to give a word now to our participants. Somebody would like to take a word or to share any experience. Most welcome. It's time for you now. So you can unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Як отримати презентацію англійською?
Meanwhile, I would like to say that we have a presentation from Mr. Maximilian. He just sent it to the chat, so you can download it, you can open it via link. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Also, I believe Marina, she will send right now the presentation in English, so we will have it as well.
Я попрошу Ольгу перевести. Я зрозуміла, що хочуть отримати презентацію англійською мовою. Можливо, я надішлю організаторам, а ви тоді перешлете. Добре?
Yeah, so from what I understand, you would like to have the presentation in English, so I will send it out to the organizers and you will be able to share it further.
Thank you so much. So I believe Mr. Ivan, he would like to speak now.
Oh, just a question, if I might.
Great.
A question about definitions. But first of all, let me appreciate all the distinguished participants for wonderful presentations. If you were to define what is a victim of human trafficking, from what I hear, there are so many different aspects of potential threats that I'm just wondering, is there any standard quote unquote definition, and what are the conflicting definitions of the victims of human trafficking? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question.
Maybe Yulia, Sachenko, or Maximilian, you can answer.
Okay. Yeah, I will try. Thank you so much, Ivan, for your question. It's quite difficult to distinguish one definition because like there is no one definition for everyone, and the legislation of every country is very different. And basically, it's what is human trafficking or victim of human trafficking in one country may differ from the victim of human trafficking in another country. But for us, as the organization that fights human trafficking and helps survivors of human trafficking, we always pay attention to the circumstances where the person has been, and basically if there was an exploitation of a person against his will, we may talk about human trafficking. There is also a kind of how to say, a model for human trafficking, which includes action, means, and the purpose. If I'm not mistaken in English, maybe Mr. Maximilian may add something. But if we are looking at the case and we suspect human trafficking in this case, we need to see the action that has been taken against the person, then means, by what means it was like accomplished, the crime was accomplished, and the purpose. And if the purpose was the exploitation of the person against his will, we may declare that human trafficking case has occurred, and this person is the victim of human trafficking or a survivor of human trafficking. Yeah, maybe Mr. Maximilian may add something to.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, generally, if I may, in general, I would second that this kind of approach. I mean, certainly from an international law perspective, the term that is often used is just victim. However, when it comes to victim and survivor leader, there are different kinds of terminology. So set out by us in the updated ANRAM handbook, we understand the term victim as follows. A basically is used for a context in which a person is under the direct control of a trafficker. That is for us a victim. Or and B in context, for instance, in which the formal recognition of a person's status as a victim of trafficking is directly relevant to obtaining basically specific legal rights and entitlements. So basically referring back then to international standards and national standards that are usually just referring to victims and not survivors. The term survivor is used for, at least we are using the term survivor for all other contexts, basically placing an emphasis on the individual lived experiences and on the act of survivor rather than on the limitations of basically victimhood. And therefore references to both are used throughout the handbook, and we are using them throughout, but as I said, like depending on the specific context. And then we have a third category that we're trying to promote is basically a survivor leader. A survivor leader is basically someone, a survivor who is a professional advocate or innovator in any discipline within the field of combating trafficking human beings. And they are, as I said, also central to the update of the handbook, but also to all the work that we're doing. Whenever we're basically implementing work, we are convinced that survivor leaders should give their inputs and views in order to make those approaches survivor-centered and victim-centered in that regard. I hope that helped a bit to clarify. There is, as I said, it is not 100% fully explained in that way, but that's how we understand as ODIHR, understand the terminology for victim and survivor.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, if I may add a little bit to this model of action, means, and purpose to distinguish the crime of human trafficking. This applies when we are talking about the adult survivor. And basically adults means, action means recruitment, harboring, transportation, obtaining, anything else. By means, we mean force, fraud, coercion, etc. And the purpose is the exploitation and profit, like gaining profit from the person. But at the same time, if we are talking about the child survivor, if we are talking about kids, the means does not like
apply.
Is not important. Yeah, does not apply, because we all know that any child is very easy to be, you know, cursed or forced, or very easy to abduct or deceive a child. So if we are talking about the children survivors, in this AMP, action means purpose model, we are looking only on actions and the purpose. And if there was an action like recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision of a child with the purpose of commercial sex or labor or other services, exploitation, basically, we are talking about human trafficking crime, and we are talking that this child is the survivor of human trafficking.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Julia and Mr. Maximilian. It was really a pleasure. And I would like to pass the word to Mr. Alec. Mr. Alec, are you here? You are joining us today?
Hi, how are y'all?
Hello, yes, please. Just a few words about your experience today, and we are looking forward to it.
Well, I'd just like to begin by thanking y'all for gathering today to discuss such an important and heavy issue that's going on throughout not only Ukraine but the entire world today. And I am so thankful for the ways that each and every individual here is actually taking so many steps and forward to try to combat it, which I think is a very, very encouraging thing to see, honestly. So I think that my question for y'all is how do y'all come alongside new individuals and organizations who are wanting to help in this combative process, and more focusing on the preventative issues side of things? How would you guys come alongside newer organizations and individuals who are seeking to help combat the issue of trafficking and human rights violations?
Julia, I believe this is your question.
Okay, yeah, so A21 globally and in Ukraine as well, we are very open to cooperation with individuals as well as other organizations, because we understand that human trafficking is such a huge and global and complex and transnational issue that it's simply not possible to combat it alone. It's like simply impossible. That's why we need as many people as possible, as many organizations passionate to fight this crime globally and in their countries and even in their communities as possible. So we are open to recruit volunteers, as well as we are in constant cooperation with other organizations in Ukraine. For example, we are working really closely with national and international organizations. On the national level, firstly, it's a Ministry of Social Policy, which is a national coordinator of fighting human trafficking in Ukraine, and with international organizations like IOM, OSCE that were present today, and local organizations, local NGOs, like the NGOs that Marina Pasechnik was presenting on behalf of them today. And in Ukraine, you know, as we are traveling across the country, we are presenting in universities, schools, etc. And there are sometimes, you know, you meet some passionate students. They just want to do something to, you know, to help, to eradicate this crime in their community, in their little city. And, you know, you may say that, what can we do? You know, what can I do in my little city, in my little school, or in my little university alone? I cannot be, you know, efficient enough. But we are trying to support these initiatives, and we establish so-called A teams, which are basically the teams of volunteers across Ukraine and across the globe. There are many of them. And these volunteers, we just equip them with some materials, knowledge, I don't know, leaflets, brochures, so that they would be able to do prevention work in their universities. We teach them how to do the simple events like, you know, showing movies, or like watching movies about human trafficking with their peers, and then distribute leaflets and talk about human trafficking and how to protect themselves. Something simple as this. And we also have an annual event that happens every year all around the globe, and a lot of them are happening in the US. You may heard of it. It's a Walk for Freedom. It's an annual event that is happening around October 18th. Like 2 years ago, it was happening in 50 countries, in 500 places around the globe. This year, the number is a little bit smaller because of the COVID restrictions, etc. But at the same time, this is a great platform for anyone who wants to fight human trafficking to join and to show their passion against this crime, you know, to do something to combat human trafficking, to raise the voice for those who cannot speak on themselves. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I do have one additional question. Based off of the data gathered up to this point in the statistics y'all have found, is there specific regions or oblasts within Ukraine that are more vulnerable to trafficking, or could benefit more from kind of that prevention measures?
Well, it's a complex question again, and maybe Marina Pasechnik, in her presentation, she was sharing the map of Ukraine with these regions, and those regions who were darker, they are more kind of vulnerable to human trafficking because of like different reasons. But I would say that the eastern part of Ukraine is very vulnerable because of they are now not under governmental control of Ukraine government, and they are like influenced by the military conflict very much, and exploitation is happening there all the time. At the same time, on the western border of Ukraine, Western oblast or Western regions are also very vulnerable because there is a huge, temptation for people to migrate to the Western countries like Poland and further, because they are looking for a better life, for better opportunities, for employment, for I don't know, just a better conditions for themselves and their families, and they may be very vulnerable to be lured into human trafficking situations.
Thank you for that. Last time I was in Ukraine with one of the individuals I've had the absolute pleasure and opportunity of working with out there. He kind of described a situation in the region that he's in, of where the parents of households migrate to Poland for better work opportunities with hopes of being able to send funds back to their family or their children who are still within Ukraine, which obviously can create a huge vulnerability for the children when left behind by themselves. And do you guys have you guys seen much of that throughout your experience?
Yes, exactly. Basically, this is what Marina's presentation was all about, and I believe that Marina will send to organizers the presentation in English, so that you will receive it in English on your email. But sorry?
Will be a little easier for me to read the English.
Yeah. So basically, we can see this is the situation that is happening all around Ukraine, and the Western regions are very kind of, this situation is very common on the western part of Ukraine. And if you don't mind, can I ask you, are you representing the organization, or you are just somebody who is willing to take part in fighting human trafficking? And what was your purpose to be in Ukraine as you faced the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with, I'm with an organization called Equip International, and I am taking up a project out in Ukraine to hopefully help lower the statistical risk of trafficking and abuse of youth and children in specific. And so with that, we aim to come in and help provide meet some of the practical needs of different families and regions, to then equip them with that and provide practical ways. That way we can use that as a foothold to be able to kind of teach and inform them more about the risk and the vulnerabilities that some of them face, and kind of the ways they might be kind of enticed into trafficking, mainly labor trafficking in the regions I've been in, and hopefully kind of bring down that risk and that kind of the statistical data side of things, and hopefully through what I hope to do, if be able to actually identify furthermore youth and children who are currently in trafficking or in abusive situations, and be able to kind of mitigate and get them connected with the proper authorities to help get them out of that and into rehabilitation and healing.
Thank you, Alec. Yulia, thank you. Thank you for your questions, because we are deeply involved in children's issues, and we know how many children suffer today. It's should be hundreds of thousands of children who suffer from human trafficking. And you ask about situation in the regions, and it really depends of what kind of trafficking. and it depends how many. For example, I told you about orphanages. How many orphanages in this region? How many vulnerable families? If about labor trafficking, really government have no information, any information, how many children live not with the parents, because we have some numbers of whom goes to any country looking for a job, but we don't know exactly how many children remain or stay with anybody, but not with the parents, with grandmother or grandfather or friends of these families. And it is a huge problem, because it could be that child cannot live with the parents some years, or never they will return back. Nobody knows. That's why today is huge problem with the strengthening social services, with these services for children and families, especially now in COVID time. Maybe we need more time to discuss this, but I see that time is gone. And thank you very much, each of you, because I know here on this table we have really that people who really care for children, really want to protect them, and it is very important. It's only beginning of discussion, and for Ukraine we need a lot of person who will be involved, professionals. I'm want to thank you all who are here, and I believe if we will be able to unite our resources, and we will have more impact here in Ukraine for Ukrainian children and all over the world too. Thank you.
Absolutely, I would like to agree with Mr. Mykola Kuleba, and my pleasure, all of you here. It's really a big honor for me. And as well, I'm so happy that we have here today our roundtable, human trafficking. It is super important, and it is really topic number one nowadays, as we can see. And we had today great participants, great presenters. I really appreciate all of you for your time today. And I believe if you have something to add on, please go ahead. We have more 4 minutes till our end.
Just one more time, I want to appreciate everyone for all your wonderful job that you're doing.
Thank you so much for participation.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, Julia. Final word, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for participation, and dear organizers of this event. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the survivors that we are helping in Ukraine. And I believe that this is not the last event that we are having, because as we need it, as many as possible, to raise awareness of our people, not just in Ukraine, but all around the globe, and to unite our capacities and unite our efforts to eradicate human trafficking everywhere and forever. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Yulia.
Thank you so much. And just last word from me. This event has been recorded, so if you would like to have a record, it's not a problem at all. And the information of the event will stay on the website Summit for Democracy. So please go ahead. If you need any contacts of us, we would be happy to have you and to welcome you. And if you would like to cooperate with us, we would be very happy. Thank you again for participation and looking forward to have you in other events, also human trafficking, and probably it will be next year already. Thank you one more time and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
To everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.